Making your way through work Monday takes everything you got. Then Monday night rolls around and you realize there's a shot. You're only 10 points away. All those times when your team had no fight, they're just so gosh darn frail. Then your star quarterback let another deep ball sail, and your third round pick bet on his team. Then go check out our streets where everybody knows your pain, and they listen to complaints. You wanna be where you can see our bodies bring you no shame. You wanna go where everybody knows your pain.
Welcome back to another episode of Dad Bod Fantasy Squad. I got a little bit of a different lineup here with me today. We got Mudcat Cody on the episode.
The boys are back in town.
The boys are back in town, and we got Norton with us. What's up, dude?
What's going on, fellas? How you doing?
Not bad, man. I'm ready to kick off the season. So this is it. This is our official first episode of the year. I mean, we've done other ones.
This is boys are back in town.
Officially.
Yes, this is the kickoff of our 3 episodes a week for a summer schedule. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, all at 9 p.m. We're already off to a great start by starting 5 minutes late. I mean, what could go wrong from here? Really
Feels
on
right.
time.
Feels very us.
It does. Hey, we instantly have a comment here saying, Cody, come cut my grass.
I actually just picked up my phone because I was going to text you a picture to put up, but it probably won't get up there. But I got to say, my lawn is a happy camper this spring. She is plush, green, and well striped.
It's a beautiful thing, man.
It is.
I was able to get out and get some fertilizer on my lawn. And honestly, I've told you this in text, Cody. I don't know if I've said it on here. My yard has been like a jungle because it gets real tall in the back because there's a lot of rainwater that collects. So when it's like real rainy for the week, I can't really mow back out there. So it just, I thought I was good I thought I was in the clear. We got an early cut in April. I was like, oh man, this is crazy. It's kind of dry in April. That means it's probably going to be a dry summer. It started pouring for like 3 straight weeks. And then next thing I know, I was with the jungle in my back, man. And it took a while to get it down, but
you're the mullet house. You're the mullet house. Business in the front, party in the back.
Well, the problem is I never even I don't touch the front if I can't go to the back, bro.
Okay.
I'm
not following you.
I just am discouraged. So I never cut the front if I can't cut the back.
Yeah.
I had to use a weed whacker. That's exactly what I had to do. I had to use
real tall then. Okay.
Well, that's not only is it real
judging.
tall, but I still have sitting water. Is where I had to use the weed whacker at, is where the sitting water still is. So like I'm like bending over from the dry spot because I have shoes that water gets right in. And I'm like weed whacking this taller grass that's still in water right now.
How many times have you mowed this year?
Twice. This is the second time.
That was second time. Yeah. I'm probably like 7 deep.
Yeah, I mean, I probably should have been, but like the problem is, in the part that you could judge me is not doing my front, but don't judge me for the back. But the back's the one that gets disgusting. The front kind of just gets a little,
just does its thing.
Yeah, the front's a lot shorter than the back.
Is it kind of like mossy grass, or why does it grow slow in the front? Other than, I mean, do you think
I got a big tree in my front of my yard.
You might need some lime.
It takes up a lot of it really doesn't grow too bad. Like it needed to be cut, but the part that was bad, the part that there was probably Nina was probably trucking through some fleas and stuff was the backyard.
You should think about a crop circle if it gets to that point again. Or like Dad Bod logo.
Yeah, I could
actually.
Is that your new thing that you're gonna try?
This could be a good idea. You know, the way my front yard is, it's got a little bit of slope to it. I think I could do it and you could see it from the road. Like you could actually tell what it was.
Can you catch us at 9 p.m.?
Yeah. Oh, it could be a cover photo on
Advertising.
Facebook and on everywhere.
That'd be great. That would be great. Yeah, dude. I'm excited to work on my yard a little bit. I know I was telling Cody, and we got to say, I don't want to get into this right now because we're already running out of time, but maybe looking at taking out our deck and putting a patio in, but it's still in the very early pricing out stages. See if it even makes sense.
A lot of
But
exciting
if it
things I
does,
hear.
yeah, if it does, I'll have stories for you guys.
Is
Yeah,
Jess chirping for a pool yet while you do it?
No, she doesn't want a pool,
No?
and I'm
Okay.
dying for a pool.
Dude,
I
that's
want a
how.
pool.
That's the same
Okay.
same for me. Same for me. Because like the way our house is, like out the back, it's like kind of like a short little like porch, and then it's like real small. It like drops down to like a little tiny little deck. And
Yeah.
I'm like telling my wife, I'm like, I'd love to like raise that deck up to like the same level as when you walk out, and
Yeah,
then like make it expand and have a pool off of it.
Underneath.
And
Yeah.
she really ain't she ain't going for it. But
no, I don't know if she gives you the same line, but a pool in Ohio is pointless, is what I always.
it's kind of I kind of get that a little bit.
The exact opposite. My wife has wanted a pool since the day we got married, and we have a pond behind our house. I bought land on a pond so I wouldn't have space to do a pool.
He's thinking.
There's just one in every relationship. There's always the naysayer and the one that's gun ho, and it seems like the naysayers win because we're all 03 out of here. Well, actually getting to football here, we did have some off-season madness that has kind of begun. We have some rookies reporting to, I don't think it's mandatory training camp. They come for, I think it's like a week. Norton, correct me if you're familiar with what I'm saying. And then they go back home, and then an actual training camp will be a couple weeks from now. But right now, I think it's mostly rookies and voluntary workouts outside of rookies. Right?
I believe that's correct.
We got some footage of Justin Fields throwing the ball. We got some footage of Anthony Richardson throwing already. But here's some of the takeaways that I've seen. And tell me, I don't know, give me a little sign that you want to chime in and talk about. Justin Fields, light years ahead of where he was, which never really specifies where he was, according to offensive coordinator Luke Getsy. Cody?
I think the Justin Fields hype train is going to get massive this year. Massive.
For sure.
I think he could be, I could be way off in this. I think by the end of this, there's a chance he's like QB 5 or 6 off the board.
Yeah, I think it's going to
be close to there right now.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Norton.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I feel like it's going to be similar. Sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
I was going to say, it feels like similar to what we saw with Hurts last year, where like Hurts started off like it was like a little bit slower, and then all of a sudden, as it got closer and closer. But the thing is, I think people like Fields more than Hurts just in general. I mean, draft capital, they just liked him more. I think they buy into it more.
He's actually probably the better athlete of the two, honestly.
Right. So it's like, I think people will want to buy into it more and things like that. So I agree with you. Like that hype train's going to get going crazy soon enough.
Interesting is like, I don't think I'm on it. I'm not necessarily pressing. Yeah, I'm not pressing the other way, but I'm not. I think because of what you're saying, Jalen Hurts, there was definitely a section of Twitter that's like Jalen Hurts going to have a great year, everything. But it wasn't like how Fields is feeling now. And I think now it's because we've seen Hurts. We've seen these guys get elite wide receiver production and what happens. And
we've seen more than just Lamar Jackson do it. That's the truth of what it is. This is a real way to fantasy success now.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's like now you're talking about if he gets to QB 5 or 6, you're close, not quite close to drafting him at a ceiling.
So funny, Mario. I was going to say this because I don't know if you remember, but you and I had this Hurts conversation because you had him at like 3 or 4.
I watched it. Yeah, 4.
Yeah, 4. Yeah. And I was like, I think it went something like, I think this is in the range of outcomes, but you're drafting mid his ceiling. Now I was off by a spot. He finished 3rd. So I was wrong, but it's the same conversation.
But it was different. The reason I was ranking, what you said is I was drafting him at my ceiling. And I remember even on that same episode, I was like ranking. If you're going to say that, I'm ranking at a ceiling, which could have been true. And it proved close to true. I mean, Who
You're
I
100%
he was
right. You got to take this
honestly
run
he
that
could have
don't-
been QB1 if he didn't get hurt, but that's beyond the point. It's still close enough to his ceiling, but he was never being drafted at 3 or 4 or not in any of the leagues I was in. He was usually drafted 6, 7, 8, 9 maybe. Am I misremembering? Am I rewriting
No,
history
I think
here?
you're right. No, I think you're right. And even if it was he was 6 or 7, which I don't know if he was, the difference in draft capital for that QB3 versus QB6 or 7 can be 4 or 5 rounds. So it's a massive difference, even so.
And a much more already, that Philly was going to be pretty good regardless. They had a nice offensive line. They have weapons. Yeah, like Chicago still, they have pieces, but these are all like, if you were to look at them and compare them to Philadelphia Eagles, these are the discounted pieces.
Yeah, they are. They got a bunch of like wide receiver 2s.
Yeah.
Okay, tight end.
Yeah.
That's why I feel the same. Like when it comes to, there's a lot of similarities, obviously, with we're talking about, DJ Moore going over there, similar to how AJ Brown went over to Philly and took Hurts to the next level. Another year developing as a passer. But the thing is, I think the biggest difference is just the offense in general. Like I think the ceiling on Fields is more limited than Hurts, just from an overall offensive environment. Like if Philly's scoring 28 a game and Chicago scoring 21, it just limits the ceiling potential for Fields compared to Hurts.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we won't get too much into this because I'm sure we'll be talking about this a lot more. But yeah, the bottom line is he is getting hyped even by his offensive coordinator. Second piece of news that popped out. Let me know if either of you want to touch on this. Chiefs GM believes Kadarius Toney can be an all-around wide receiver 1. He said vertical. He said in and out, short touch passes.
Did he mention hamstrings?
He did not mention hamstrings.
Because I think that counts an all-around wide receiver 1 for me. They got to have hamstrings.
I think it makes a lot of sense when you add the offensive system is in regards to DJ Moore and that that offense in general. But I thought it was interesting. So it's in our notes. It's early in the offseason, so these things are going to come up. Here's another early in the offseason piece of news that actually shocked me. Robert Saleh said Corey Davis will be on this team in 2023. That would make Corey Davis wide receiver number 5.
Yeah.
So pretty deep. I think Corey Davis, even at this point in his career and what we've seen, I would still argue he's a wide receiver 3 or 4.
I agree with that. And honestly, the biggest
not even fantasy, just like NFL.
Yeah. The biggest thing it tells me is that Aaron Rodgers likes Corey Davis.
Because he does have a lot to say on his offense right now.
He is calling the wide receiver shots, period.
I don't know. It might be a little bit more than wide receiver, especially if we see Mercedes Lewis sign there.
Yep.
Barkley and Josh Jacobs, unless I missed something, still have not signed their franchise tag. That means they're potentially holding out. Should we be worried or buying them right up if we're in a dynasty league? Are they discounted yet? That's another question. Do we got to wait for that discount to sink in?
I don't know if people really would be discounting them too much. Honestly, I mean, I think everyone's just kind of expecting it to happen and to get done. Like they're top end running backs. Like they're gonna play.
Let me rephrase it then. Willie says he's buy them if they're discounted. What if you own them? Are you a little bit nervous? Are you selling if you could get the same kind of value? Well, I'm not selling discount. I'm just asking, like, would this push you to go look for a trade when you weren't previously looking for one if you had them?
For me, no. And I'm going to take too logical of an approach here, I think, which doesn't necessarily play out. But I don't think players holding out has fared that well for players on a large scale. Lamar threatened to hold out, obviously, and it worked out for him. But if you look through, especially at a position like running back, I mean, obviously Le'Veon's the clear-cut one, but I just don't think it serves players well to take time off from football. It doesn't seem to be the case. Even if they to some extent get their money, It just doesn't. We talked about this some last year with various players, Mario.
I think we talked about this years ago, Cody.
Was it years ago now? Yeah.
I'm saying last year, did we? I don't remember who we talked about last year, but when we first started this podcast, were we talking about Zeke holding out, or were we talking about Zeke serving a suspension?
Might have been the suspension. Okay. Yeah. I guess I'm a little more worried if I was going to say, if you said, are you worried about one of them? I'd be more worried about Jacobs only because I think Saquon ends up getting a deal done with New York. And Jacobs, I'm not sure he's a Raider after this year. So that just makes it a little more up in the air to me.
Yeah, I would say I agree on that too. Like, I think Saquon is definitely more of a priority for the Giants than Jacobs is for the Raiders.
Yeah.
So there is like that uncertainty, plus the fact that like Jacobs kind of finally had that huge year, 1 year, as opposed to Saquon basically has been a stud every time he's healthy. So kind of like a little bit different.
Isn't that kind of messed up? Because if you actually looked at their career stats, I think Josh Jacobs is probably ahead in most of the fields. And I'm kind of just going off of memory here and based on how much he's played.
Yeah. I think the Raiders probably wish they had picked up that 5th-year option on Jacobs, looking back.
That was last year that they declined it, right?
They declined it, and then, yeah.
He went off. Contract year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Said, it paid me up.
So I think that's overall not worried yet, I guess. It feels like the...
Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, I had told you guys this, that I sold Saquon in a league literally last night. But I think I told you I got back Kenneth Walker, Deontay, and Trey Lance for Saquon and 3 second-round picks. So anyway, I wasn't actively looking to move Saquon. There's also some like salary cap implications too. Like, so it's not like
where it gets real confusing.
Right. Yeah. I'm not going to go through all that, but like that's kind of like what the offer was. I wasn't the one actually initiating the offer. I wasn't like aggressively looking, but the guy came to me with an offer similar to that. And I was like, well, got me thinking. I was like, so I'm not opposed to getting rid of him. It's just I'm not like actively searching.
Yeah. Willie said, I wonder how many trades involved Lamar, Eckler, and Barkley. Well, we saw one in our main league. It was actually pretty big, and I thought the person that sold those guys was playing it safe. I didn't think Lamar was going to play this year. I actually truly believe that. So, anyways, we're here for a reason, boys. We got a cool show. We're going to be talking rookie QBs actually for the next couple of weeks because most redraft information seems a little bit too early right now. We're going to be talking a lot of dynasty. So we definitely kick off this schedule with the dynasty focus. We're going to be hitting rookie QBs, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. We'll have a couple rookie mocks mixed in there. And then we have some dynasty, just strategy talks. I don't have the titles. I think it's the next 3 weeks. We're pretty much doing all dynasty though.
Lots of dynasty, agreed.
Which I'm actually really pumped about. I mean, it allowed us to take away some of those like filler episodes later in the year.
Yeah, it's we're in a little bit of a transition even as a group of friends where we're playing a lot more dynasty, so this is a lot of fun.
I need my redraft, but if I was to be told you can only pick one, it's dynasty for me right now.
Agreed, for sure.
I still need my redraft though. Like I'm not like I don't even want to play redraft at all. I think there's still that I need that in my lineup of teams.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough. I don't know what I would do. I honestly, if you included keeper in there, I would choose keeper just because it's kind of like the sweet spot of the two. But I mean, yeah, I don't know what I would choose. I mean, I probably would choose dynasty, even though I do more redraft. But it's just tough because I love
keeper in the same as redraft. But
yeah, I guess I would go. Yeah, I guess I would go redraft then.
You know what I really struggle with these days? Snake draft, redraft. It just doesn't do it for me anymore.
It doesn't get the juices flowing like it used to.
Auction and keepers are nothing for me. Like it just doesn't do it for me anymore.
Yeah, no, it's fair.
Auction should be necessary in all leagues. And for the past two,
I love it.
These fools have had me been the auctioneer, dude. And it's actually, I really enjoy it because I have fun doing it. And I think I've talked enough on here, so it's kind of just translate well during, but I still think it inhibits my ability to draft during draft day.
It would be tough.
I have a really important thing to slow us down with.
What's that?
Are you a slip clubber, Norton? A sip clubber? I'll try a third time.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was like slip clubber.
I
was like,
just heard your wife laugh. Is that right?
No.
Oh, I thought I heard a wife laugh here.
no, my wife sneezed. That was what's going on there in the background. There.
Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, I am 100%, dude.
What the hell are we talking
This guy, see, smart guys, couple of smart guys right here.
$11.99 a month, unlimited drinks at Panera.
You can't beat that. I get like 2 a day.
Honestly, that's what I was just gonna say. I'm 2 a day on average. There's
Some
days that I sneak a third in.
Yeah, for sure. I'll go. So I mean, there's days I'll sneak a fourth. I'll be honest, but
How close
if
do you
we're
live to Panera?
so there's like 3 or 4, like honestly, really close to me, and then there's 3
Jelly.
close to my work. So like I I know we're slowing it down, but I
don't mind.
It's funny because so every morning I order one from the one that's like a minute from my work.
Mhm.
And it's like 20 minutes from my house. So like as soon as I order it from like when I get my car, by the time I get there, the cup's just sitting there. I just fill it up, walk to work. And then on my way home, same thing. I pick one up on the way home. And then sometimes on lunch, like if I order something for lunch that doesn't come with a drink, there's so many right by wherever I get my food. I just stop right next door basically and get another one. It's like, I'm like, dude, save so much on that. I keep like a bunch of them at home too. If I don't finish it, I get like iced tea or whatever else, switch it up, and then like my wife will drink them or whatever. We just have it in the fridge, and it's like,
I'm in a smaller town, so we only have one Panera, but it's fortunately 200 yards from me.
see, it's so great. It's such an amazing deal, honestly.
I actually typically believe that it's easier for you guys to get to those places than it is for like me in Columbus. I fully believe that, like because you're either going or you're not going, right? Like if there was no Panera around you, you're not going to go 30 minutes away. But for me, any sort of kind of fast food, anything, 20 minutes, almost easy.
And not even just distance; it's traffic. Like
it's traffic. I'm probably closer to all of these places. It's purely traffic and how many traffic lights there are and everything like that.
We actually say that is our favorite part of where we live, which sounds like a crazy standard somebody would give.
It's one of the things I miss. One of the things I miss so much.
It's remarkable. I can be in Lowe's in 3 minutes, like literally.
Yeah, dude. That's how it is for me too. Like where we're at in Olmsted Falls is like we're like 5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe from Great Northern. So like everything that is like right there, and then we're walking distance from like the Olmsted Falls downtown. So there's all this stuff there that we'd like to go to. Everything is like on my way to work is like 15 minutes and everything's like right along the way. Work stuff all by work. I love it.
Sip cuppers.
It's
all right, thing, boys, man. Go get us a Panera freaking endorsement, please.
Well, they're closed now. Oh yeah, I thought you were gonna say a drink. I said they just closed.
No, endorsement. All right, so Willie has a good question for when we're talking about these. So keep this in the back of your mind. Which wide receivers or tight ends should see an uptick? We could say / downtick on fantasy production. So keep that in your back of the mind when we're talking about these. But let's start off with our rookie QBs. All right, the most obvious one, the number 1 overall, first Alabama player to go number 1 ever, if I'm not mistaken. Carolina Panthers drafted Bryce Young. So where are you? And I'm not even going to talk about his redraft value because it was actually really tough to kind of find ADPs that weren't best ball, which I do believe is kind of skewed. Although we may have to use those a little bit later in the season, I didn't think we would need to necessarily crack those right now since we're kind of just focusing on dynasty. So where are you at on his dynasty value? And to give you a little bit background, he's ranked QB 10 on Keep Trade Cut. So we'll start off with you, Cody, or we'll kick off with you, Norton, and then we'll go to Cody.
Yeah. So when it comes to Bryce Young, I kind of view him a little bit like similar to Kyler. Like I think he's like a slower Kyler, the way I see him. Like I think Kyler gets knocked. Like people don't think he's that good of a passer, and I think he's better at passer than people give him credit for. Any QB that runs, a lot of people don't give him.
And he's more elusive.
Right.
Kyler.
Oh yeah, for sure. And so like, but when I see Young, like I think he's a better passer than people give him credit for. He's like similar size to Kyler. He's not as fast as Kyler. Obviously both number 1 overall picks with similar question marks coming out in a way. Whether the size is going to be they're gonna hold up. And I think I saw some good stuff with Bryce where like he was basically incredible once the pocket breaks down and he gets in a scramble drill essentially. His like ratings were like skyrocket over the other guys in this class. Like, and he was like right on par with like guys like Burrow, Rogers, who you don't think of like as like scrambling guys, but they're guys who
are elusive in
right
with the ball in their hands. Yeah,
they keep the play alive and make something happen downfield, and that's what I think he does a lot really well. Like where
Patty Mahomes.
It's
best.
calmness. I look at it that way. You have to have the physical ability to do it, but then it's the poise and the calm.
It's actually something I want to touch on here, Cody. Perfect. But go ahead, Norton. Sorry.
But no, yeah, I mean, exactly. That you guys are exactly spot on with that. Like that's how I see him. For me, he's still like he's my QB2 of this class in terms of fantasy. He's I think he's like kind of in the middle of both the other main two in terms of rushing and passing. Like I think he's going to rush for more than Stroud, but I think he's much better passer than Richardson. So I like him. I mean, he's my number 3 overall in super flex drafts like right now from this rookie class, behind only Bijan and Richardson. So yeah, I mean, I have no problem taking him. I think he can play in this league for a while and be a pretty good quarterback.
Willie asks, is he the only one who throws Doug Flutie in the short QB category? I couldn't even tell you his height without looking it up. So I don't
tiny,
know.
Dude.
But one thing I did want to touch on before we go to Cody here is that the one thing that I literally was going to kind of chime in was saying, when I watched his highlights, when the pocket does break down, he has and I know we talk about this, and this was actually one of Stroud's biggest like pros and strengths is he's very calm, very like the game never seems overwhelming to him. But Bryce Young always has that sort of view. In any of the highlights that I saw, when that pocket would collapse, he would kind of just calm. It was, and Cody, we were having this discussion when I was like, well, I must not have watched him enough because I just watched his footage and it was way better than I thought. And the dude was throwing to nobody's his senior year. So with that being said, Cody, go ahead and give your notes on him. And then I have another question for you guys.
Yeah, I pretty much agree on a lot of what was said there. He's my number 2 QB in Dynasty in this class. Totally agree there. And that's actually, he was my number 1 for quite a while. And then I made a little bit of a move late in the process. I agree perfectly with the Kyler assessment. I actually, when I did my kind of scouting report on these guys, I initially had Kyler as my comp, and I pulled Kyler because I don't think Bryce is the athlete that Kyler is, and I don't think Kyler has the arm that Bryce does. The only thing they're similar in is height and to some degree weight. Bryce is a little skinnier, but I actually don't think they are the same player at all. I don't love. Yeah, I don't. My biggest concern looking at Bryce is actually probably the team. I think that team lacks some serious talent on the offensive side of the ball, and we've seen plenty of QBs get ruined by just lack of success early on and they fizzle out quick, and that worries me a little bit for Bryce because I think this team has a long road ahead still offensively, but I like the player. I think if he was 6'2", this number 1 overall pick would have been decided a year ago. I mean, you literally just have to be okay with the height. You just have to be okay with the height, and you're in.
Yeah, I was gonna say, for me, like in terms of playing style, I guess I would say his playing style reminds me more of like peak Russ, where it's a guy who's like calm. He can get you that 350 to 400, 350 to 500 rushing yards if needed. He's not looking to necessarily run, but he's elusive enough and athletic enough to do so. But he's more looking to, keep it alive, push it downfield. But yeah, like that's kind of what I see with him. Some interesting stuff that I had seen. I think it was Dwayne McFarland was putting down on Twitter about his ability in the scramble drill that we were talking about. So in disguise coverage, he had a 93.3 rating, and then like Stroud at 68.4, Hooker was 74.9, Richardson 57.2, and then same thing with the scramble drill. He had a 92.9, and the next highest was Stroud with 60.5. So that's a massive drop. And then when you're looking at compared to like other NFL QBs, like his ratings are like almost identical to Burrow's in terms of versus disguise, versus pressure, no pressure, and scramble. Like his ratings are very, very, very similar to Burrow.
Hi, Garfield.
No, I think he was never, and like you both seem passionate and excited about him. He's never been a guy, and maybe this is because I haven't been paying too much attention to college this past year, but he's never been a guy that I've been superly overly excited about. It was a pedestrian sort of senior year for him, but again, he kind of had there's not much offensively on that team, and there really wasn't. Like if you look at their wide receivers, it wasn't. I think Gibbs was their leading receiver for the season. So, yeah, he had the most receiving yards, which is pretty insane. The question I do have for you guys before we move on to the next QB here is there for redrafts, because we're going to have to focus on redraft for this specifically. And if there is a guy that you want to talk about in Dynasty, fine, mention it. In redraft, are you excited for any of these wide receivers, tight ends, even Miles Sanders for redraft with a rookie QB and Bryce?
I think Miles Sanders is going to be on fantasy radars. I mean, obviously, I think he proved that he can be a productive running back in the NFL, and I think there's going to be opportunity to be had here. So Miles Sanders makes a lot of sense. It's tough for me to get excited about a pass catcher here this year, personally.
Yeah, pretty much the same for me. I mean, I think Miles Sanders, like I've always liked him, and I think he'll be fine. It'll be interesting to me to see how much pass down usage he gets, because that was like a big knock of why I wasn't big on him the last 2 years playing with Jalen Hurts. Like I don't really love getting running backs with running QBs.
Mobile
so
QBs, you mentioned that, yeah.
Yeah, so like now he's going to a guy who's not necessarily like we mentioned, he's not like looking to run like those guys are, but can do it. So I mean, honestly, I think it'll be really telling to see like how they plan, and how they plan to use them in the passing game, and that could really change how his season goes.
The one quick thing I'll add, Thielen's got a chance of 8-9 touchdowns again. I mean, that's what Thielen does, but it's
no
going to be
Mingo love.
Not enough with a rookie QB in this offense to me.
Yeah.
It's like
Dynasty, it makes more sense.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Dynasty more so. I mean, I like Mingo, but yeah, like in redraft, he's kind of got to earn more time. I mean, it's not like he has like much standing in the way necessarily, but you're also talking about like Cody said, like it doesn't project to necessarily be like a high powered offense. You got a rookie QB, he's a rookie receiver, like. You
got a Frank Reich.
Yeah. So it's gonna be tough to overcome.
I don't really care for Frank Reich, but it seems like a lot of players end up liking him.
Yeah.
Let's move on to quarterback. Well, it's 2, but he wasn't drafted that way. Actually, he's probably QB1 on most people's rankings. Anthony Richardson arguably has the most upside for fantasy out of all of these guys. So we're going to need to be a little bit more specific. What do we expect year 1? Do we want Gardner to start majority of the year? What happens if Richardson starts week 1? Are we concerned about his development moving forward? Who wants to kick off with this one?
I'll jump in if that's cool with you, Norton.
Yeah.
He's QB9 and keep trade cut in Dynasty.
Yeah. So, I think I'm souring on the sit QB thing, and I'm talking from the perspective of a GM of an organization. I've spent a lot of years being a big proponent of letting your QB sit. We saw it be successful with Rodgers in different situations, and I can see where it makes sense. I think a player like Anthony Richardson, though, what is watching Gardner Minshew going to teach him with his skill set?
It allows him more time to learn the playbook. That would be
more time to learn the playbook, sure. But from a hey, let's mold your game or let's advance your game. I'm not sure watching Gardner Minshew does that for Anthony Richardson. I think Anthony Richardson on the field does that to me.
I don't know if that's exactly what's happening here, but like I think the QB sitting back allows to see how the NFL is played, what a quarterback that doesn't use his legs and kind of goes for the quick throws and what his mechanicals look like. That helps him kind of complete these passes. Little small things that I think can kind of, and again, with playbook, that can help develop rather than pushing a guy that was coming out of college with a 53% completion percentage, which I don't really,
he's going
I
to
don't
struggle.
necessarily
I
think
think
that's
he's
the
gonna
be all because we've always kind of picked on that. But I do like, we saw Hurts sit. We saw Lamar sit. They both sat close to 10 to 12 weeks. I know Hurts was 12 weeks. I think Lamar
It's hard to
was
know
10.
if that mattered. That's what the hard part is. You know what I'm saying?
Isn't it funny though that those two are two guys that like were instantly nitpicked about their completion percentage, and they did have this first year of sitting. Was Hurts was behind Wentz, wasn't he? Not Gardner. Yeah.
Did Fields
Hurts
sit or did Fields start?
Fields was thrown right in there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Which is seeming to work out for him. I guess I was trying to compare situations, like trying to get a feel for it.
But his rookie year, it didn't.
I'm okay with him struggling though. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Is if I don't have something I want them to learn from, I think the Wolves can teach them to some degree. Now, if your guy gets eaten up mentally, I think he's going to get eaten up anyways. And I've changed on this. I really have. I used to want my QB to sit, but like, if my guy can't handle throwing 18 picks his rookie year, he can't handle the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm kind of more along that line too. I mean, you was even like not even thinking of like running quarterbacks, but you think back to Peyton Manning, like his rookie year, he threw a ton of picks.
Record number of picks for the NFL.
So it's like, and then like you said, he had the mental toughness to bear down, learn from it, and you're expecting that. You're expecting, especially a guy like this raw, to do like that. I mean, look at Josh Allen. Same thing. Josh Allen was maybe the worst passer in the NFL as rookie year. He was horrible, like god awful, and took the put in the work, took the next steps, and he's elite. I mean, Richardson, I want it. I mean, maybe it's just as someone who wants to watch fun players play and have them in fantasy and stuff like that. Like, I want him to play right off the jump. I want to see what he can do. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's like the biggest athletic freak we've ever seen at the position. Like, he has the number one all-time like athletic score for a QB. He's running as fast as Lamar, as big as Cam. Like, this dude is crazy and like, a lot of people I've seen scouting him talking about, like, because I haven't like scouted him like anywhere near as like much as people I trust scout him, like, but I've seen a lot of people say it's not like he just has like this rocket arm and has no touch. It's just he has touch and he can put the passes on. It's just very inconsistent. Like, it's just mostly inconsistencies and like things that, I mean, and to me that's more promising than someone who has to work mechanically to get a touchdown. Like, if he has the stuff, he has everything. It's just consistency, and if he can get to that at the NFL, and they can just have him consistently work on it over and over and over. I love him for fantasy. I mean, he's my QB1. Like, I expect him to, honestly, if he starts the whole year, I expect him to rush for 700, 800 plus yards.
So just to confirm, you both are saying start him week 1, or I want him benched for 4 or 5 games? Because I guess there's a difference here.
I think you have to read your locker room and read where he's at, but I lean towards starting him. I don't think he learns much watching Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, I agree.
Wild about this. Like, some of the greatest successful QBs have sat. We talked about Peyton Manning. He was put right in. He did great. But Patty Mahomes sat a whole year.
But you're watching
Justin Herbert.
A lot of times you're watching
Taylor.
That case you're watching
Patty
Tyrod
Mahomes
Taylor.
watched Alex Smith.
Well, I mean, Alex Smith was a
Gardner
pro.
Minshew, but a better version of Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, and I mean, you could say Rodgers sat behind, watched Favre. I just don't know what Anthony Richardson learns watching a backup.
I think you're undercutting Jock Strap Jesus a little too much.
I love
that was your
Jesus.
first.
I think he's got a place in the league.
I love him too. I
love him. I'm just not sure I love him as an educator.
As an entertainer, sure.
Honestly, if Matt Ryan was still there, I actually might feel differently about this. I might say I want to see 4 or 6 weeks of Matt Ryan, because I think
or P Riv.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am in the camp where I can give a little. If you guys are saying, let them sit for 6 weeks and then come in, I don't want them to rush them in week 1. I think there is something to be said about guys getting rushed into week 1. I mean, maybe it's just being a Browns fan, but every QB that we did it with didn't work out. And the one that we did have some time with, he was our starter for 3 years.
Yeah.
And you know who he sat behind? Tyrod Taylor again. Career
Maybe
journey.
Tyrod's the
See,
answer.
that's the thing. Tyrod's that professional. The thing is though, a lot of these guys are like professional vet QBs that they're sitting behind. Like
They
Gardner
know
is
how to go through the
still
process of the game.
yeah. Gardner's like, as much as I love him, he's
Boys,
still like a fairly young, just like
he's younger.
entertainment
break his
value
own
type
hand.
of QB.
He's got value. He was in Philly for last year. He saw a team that went to the Super Bowl. You guys are undercutting
That's a
my
fair point. I like that there. I
That's
like
true.
that
That's
point.
true. I also think he's there too because obviously with the familiarity with the offense too.
Mhm.
So maybe there is something to that in the sense that maybe they, if he does have familiarity with the offense, he doesn't have to learn it the way Richardson does. Maybe they do start him for 2, 4, 6 weeks in that range. Let Richardson give him some time to learn the offense and see how it's run. I mean, it's not like I could see it. I mean, I could see that happening.
Yeah.
I just,
Oh,
from
yeah.
a selfish standpoint, want to watch this guy
I
who's
feel like both of you are
unreal
being
looking.
selfish in the way of like I'm ready to see him play.
Maybe
want
I'm
it,
just
man.
excited. Like in Dynasty, I'm not starting in week 1. I just want to see it first. So like if he sits,
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. But it is exciting. Norton, you kind of mentioned your rushing stats. I want to throw in real quick. I tried to because I think he's the only one that's at least interesting in redraft. So I want to hit on this a
Mhm.
little bit. Today I just sat down and I said, okay, what if Anthony Richardson plays all 17 games? What's that stat line? And I tried to be pretty conservative with it. I think maybe you guys won't think so. I put him down for 2,800 yards, 18 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 700 rushing with 7 TDs, 2 fumbles. So 2,800, 18 and 14, 707. That's QB 13 last year. That feels conservative.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is like if you look at Fields' stats, like he didn't really when he was going off. I mean, he was running like crazy. Like he wasn't really. He didn't finish with great passing stats. Like when you run that much, like you don't have to be. You could be just mediocre to bad as a passer, but if you just run enough, like it's hard to finish outside of the top 12.
Yeah, and especially even if we're talking like the top 18 QBs are going to get drafted. So let's even say top 18, talking about a guy justifying. Because I think if you take Richardson, you need to take a Kirk Cousins, a Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, I think you need a safety net if you're going to take Richardson in redraft. But yeah, you look at Justin Fields. Like I know his rookie year wasn't necessarily great for fantasy. But those 12 games, it was a passable fantasy season. Over the course of the season, he probably was something like QB 18, I'm guessing, his rookie year. Guy threw 7 touchdowns. Like we literally laughed about it. What do you think, Mario? You hate all that?
Who was Fields?
Well,
through 7?
Well, just the idea of Richardson being a borderline QB1 if he starts 17.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely, just from his rushing upside alone, think that that's a possibility. I haven't even got to process any of this right now, Cody, because I'm such an advocate for him not playing the full year.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about a points per game sort of thing, so say he came in week 9, week 8, like you're talking a guy that could potentially help you in the playoff run in fantasy.
Yeah. So points per game, I think that was a 262, but don't hold that to me. So you're talking 15, 16 a game. I know that's not great. No, maybe 260 is not right. Well, I can't remember.
For QB 13, you're saying 260?
Yeah, ish. I could be off on that.
Hurts was at 360 at QB 4, so probably about right.
Yeah. So, when you start looking at it that way, it sounds like a lot when you're talking QB 12. But we got to remember that sometimes that drop off is pretty significant. When you say 15, 16 a week, it definitely feels in the range of outcomes.
Yeah, like this is a guy that if you're going to kind of bypass on the QB position, I can't imagine going super early or before Bryce Young even in redraft. And I know that kind of sounds crazy, but everyone's kind of anticipating Bryce Young being the man day one. I would assume people are like, well, Anthony Richardson's going to kind of take a little bit more time than Bryce Young.
That's interesting.
I think that's the case.
So what do you see for a redraft Bryce Young?
I actually had found a redraft ADP for him, and it was about 14th round. He was the only guy I found.
What QB would it have been?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay. Because for me, I'm not sure he's even draftable in redraft.
Yeah, like some of the stuff I was trying to look earlier as well. Like Fantasy Pros, just Fantasy Pros like rankings, like looking at 2023 Fantasy Pros rankings. I mean, obviously it's really, really early, so like it's hard to really discern. But like they were really close to each other. And I don't remember if Richardson or but they were both like 21, 23, like in that range. Dude, if
23 sounds
if Richardson's anywhere near that, he's gonna be my most drafted QB.
I mean, you just put him on your bench for the whole year, pretty much. And this is like a strat, and I think this is a strat. Like, I don't think you waste that roster spot if you have a top 5, top 7 guy. I really don't think you waste that roster spot on Richardson, even if the upside is there. But if we're talking,
I think you're taking.
You got Kirk Cousins,
Kirk and him,
or Derek Carr,
Jimmy G, Derek Carr.
Yep. Any of those guys, like, here's your upside player, right? And I think
one in the 10th, one in the 12th.
Did we have this? We had this conversation about Daniel Jones and Justin Fields, I think, last year, kind of snagging both.
It was one of my favorite things to do.
Dude, it's the favorite pastime is pairing Kirk Cousins pretty much.
He's always like QB7, like set QB7 every year.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
You take Kirk Cousins with the late drafted rushing upside QB every year. It's fantasy football's favorite pastime.
It's my favorite thing to do at QB.
For sure. It's just easy.
Guys with a high upside.
It's easy profit. Like if you look at the past years, like you just look at like there's pretty much every single year there's a QB that runs that people are all questionable about because of they can't sustain as a passer.
That's different about Fields, right? Everyone's like gun ho about Fields, but go ahead. Sorry.
Right. No, but even last year though, heading into
a year ago, Fields though.
Yeah, it was a year ago. Fields.
He was he was going pretty late, and that's the thing is he blew up because of the rushing. Year before, it was Hurts. Right.
Hurts was really somewhat. Yeah, I'd say year before was Hurts. Yeah.
And then 1 year it was Lamar that was going late and blew up, had the MVP season. Kyler was 1 year. Josh Allen was 1 year.
And it's not even it's even just high upside players because 1 year it was Dak. You know, there's always just those guys that like take a flyer on high upside. Don't take a flyer on Tom Brady for second QB.
Especially at QB. That's the thing is like it's such a replaceable. Like I'm assuming you guys we're all talking about one QB, like 12 team, one QB type of situations. Yeah.
And redraft. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the best thing to do.
Well, you guys definitely have your Anthony Richardson love. I am not hating on him, but I am not exactly sure what the situation looks like yet to kind of talk that redraft strat. But let's move on to another rookie QB. It's honestly my favorite on the board. I think he might be the best passer. You guys probably hate that. CJ Stroud. His draft stock potentially falling has been erased when the Texans took him number 2 overall. As I said, he is my number 1 of these QBs, the least risky, it feels. Do you guys have concerns with Stroud? He is ranked QB 12 in Keep Trade Cut. I also found it incredibly crazy that we see 3 QBs from this class who were shitted on for quite some time ranked QB 9, QB 10, and QB 12. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah,
I know it's Keep Trade Cut. I get it. But
yeah.
Woof.
One quick thing I'll throw in, and then Norton, I'd like to hear your thoughts. My favorite thing about CJ Stroud, and this is going to sound funny, but I think it makes a difference, especially for young QBs. He is playing in Houston in a dome, and I think that's a massive advantage over Bryce Young.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think like I don't know if you guys
maybe
say that again.
He might have better weapons.
Oh yeah. They aren't good, but they're better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Norton.
I was gonna say one of the things that worries me a little bit about him and redraft is the weapons. Like, I don't love the setup, but like, I don't know if you guys heard. I mean, last year, or last few years, really.
I feel like it's Carolina is like the same situation almost, though.
Yeah, I mean,
minus DJ. Or you mean the same to Houston or same to last year?
Same to Carolina's weapons and Texans' weapons are like I guess I would prefer Texans' weapons, and I know both of them are kind of shit.
Who's the Texans' top?
Nico.
Probably
so
Nico.
you prefer dude, Nico Collins as a top.
Did we watch
Carolina though?
I know Thielen's brutal. Thielen's
brutal. I think Nico's and honestly, I'd take Nico over anybody in Carolina, and I'm not positive who I'd take over John Mechie either, and we haven't even seen him yet.
That's another good point. Mechie should be back this year, and he was Was he early second?
Early
Mid-second?
second? That's what I was gonna say. Right at the
It's-
turn kind of guy. Yeah.
It is possible, honestly. I don't love I don't love it. Maybe it's just
I don't love it
I'm
either.
thinking of like the fact that Thielen and Shark have technically done it better than the other ones have. Maybe
They
that's why I'm just
have.
thinking like they're technically have
I'll
name
give you that
value
on
over the
Thielen. I don't know if they're gonna get Shark
They
out
have
of me.
to-
Hey, Shark
Years
got what,
ago.
1,000 yard year? But no, yeah, I mean the thing with those, like, dude, honestly, those two teams might have the worst weapons in the league. Like
They're bad. They're bad.
it's
We're-
really
we're pulling
bad.
at straws here.
I don't even know who he's bringing up here. Xavier Hutchinson.
No,
Am I
he's
missing
thinking of
something?
Dell. He's thinking
He's
Dell.
got to be thinking of Dell.
Yeah, which I actually think not this year, but long term is a nice little dynasty grab.
But yeah,
He's small. He's the smallest.
he's just tiny, dude.
Yeah.
161 or something like
160,
that.
5'8", 160 something. Yeah.
Yeah. But to your point,
him and the other tank,
yeah.
the little tank.
Right. To your point though about the dome, I mean, I've brought it up a bunch in for DFS purposes. Like, I love, players that are playing in a dome. Like, it boosts stats. Like it just does. It's shown, it's shown that it's boost stats, passing stats. So I think Stroud has that advantage there. I think Young. So the thing that's interesting about Stroud and Young, originally I would thought for sure, I was like, oh, Stroud is the best pure passer. I kind of think that in a sense, but I think he's the best combination of size and passing. He's the best, he's more prototypical size and he's a great passer. So it's easy to say, it's easier in a way, it feels easier to say Stroud has that prototypical size. His stats are great. He's a great passer. Even though when you look at with the stuff that I was looking at earlier with the PFF grades, all those kind of things, the comparisons, Young does kind of beat him out on a lot of those metrics. But again, Stroud has that size and
that must be. I think he's talking about this guy, and I'm gonna have to look him up. Xavier Hutchinson.
He is I'm pretty sure he's a late rounder or a late.
Okay.
I'm not super familiar. I recognize the name, but because I think he was from Ohio State. I don't want to sound like an idiot here, but
Really?
No, Iowa State. Sorry, Iowa State.
Oh.
But he went 6th round. 6'2", 203 from Iowa State. 6.28 was the pick. So I know he's been getting a little bit of hype from people. I've seen people
before Booty.
Boy.
Okay, this is going to be a forever conversation. Mario cannot believe Booty wasn't the number 1 overall pick.
No, not one overall.
No, he went 18 picks after Booty.
Okay.
One thing I want to throw in on Stroud, and I think I let it skew me. I'm not sure if that's right or wrong, but I definitely let it get to me with Stroud because I think you look at the size and the accuracy and the arm talent, those things. I think he checks a lot of boxes. I think he could maybe lack elite upside. I just don't know if I see superstar, but I let the S2 and cognition test things kind of get to me. And I know it came out that, hey, maybe this wasn't correct, but at the same time, Stroud came out and said, I'm not a test taker, I'm a football player. I actually hate that statement a lot in terms of what these tests have shown in terms of success, and then just owning I did really bad at it. It doesn't sit great with me.
Yeah, see,
Mario hates that statement.
I just think it's making something out of nothing. I don't
think
disagree
it turned
with
into
the
nothing,
S2.
and then he made it something again.
I don't know. You could be right. I have not looked into it just because I felt like it was a weird Jim Irsay smear campaign.
That feels right, actually.
So now then holding
Andrew
him
Luck had the
accountable,
greatest S2 ever.
holding this guy accountable for something that was came out of nowhere feels bad.
Yeah, it's funny
until he owned it.
Yeah. I get it, but that's what I'm saying. He would have
Yeah.
never been in that situation as if it never happened.
Yeah,
it feels wrong.
It does definitely. What's funny is, Mario, you mentioned he feels the safest, and I kind of think it kind of goes to what Cody said too about he feels like he's going to be a really good QB. He doesn't feel like he's going to have that superstar potential from a fantasy standpoint. I think he has I do think he has that potential outcome. I just think the potential of him being a fantasy superstar is a lot lower percentage than the other two. And even if he feels almost like he could be that, 10-year vet, that guy that you'd be happy have as your QB2 for 10 years. In Superflex, like he'd be that guy that's like your Derek Carr, your Kirk Cousins, like
your Jared Goff. It's all those
Yeah.
names.
Well,
Those are the names I see.
I understand what both of you are saying, and I think you can almost say that about a lot of pure passers that are coming out of college anymore, because there is that upside with legs. And like, as we don't see it, even when we watched that Georgia game with Stroud in it, and it felt like he was running a ton, felt like he was gaining mass yards on plays. If you look back at it and you look at this rushing yards, it was 44 yards. And I swear to you, I felt like it was 80 or 90 at the time.
Fields.
He is killing it.
Yeah.
And so like, that upside isn't there. So it's a fair statement of what you're saying, Norton. It's almost taking the odds and saying, this dude has to prove me wrong by being Joe Burrow good to be better than Anthony Richardson.
Without the legs.
Bryce Young doesn't run too much, but he runs. He's very much less than Richardson, much more than Stroud. I think he had 160 rush attempts throughout his 4 years.
Yeah, I don't think you can bank on big Bryce Young rushing production either, honestly.
I think it's going to be more so like what Dak used to do when he first came out, or Herbert maybe.
Dak and Herbert.
Even maybe a low-key Russ, you mentioned that, Norton.
Right.
I mean, I think,
Yeah, not peak. Like peak Russ, I think went for like 500 yards at some point. I don't know if Bryce will ever hit that, but like
you're a 3-something, I think is
300. Yeah, and I think Stroud's more like 150-ish, 100, 150-ish. Like, so yeah, it's definitely got to be more of, you got to do it more of like you said, you got to do it more of like Aaron Rodgers, Burrow, like those kind of elite level, like efficiency. Yeah. And I don't know if I see him. Yeah. And especially in redraft, I don't see that.
And honestly, underrated, but you probably got to figure out the goal line touchdowns.
Well, and like also
for fantasy, like that's such a big thing for some of these QBs where you look at like, hey, this guy rushed for 280 yards, but he had 6 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. And that I don't think it's changed this year. That could change in future years where they take away currently they allow players to push them, get behind them and push, but they could change that in years. I did want to move on here. I thought I had one more thing to say there, but I'm just going to move on because we are running a little bit low on time.
We can quick hit these late round QBs now.
Yeah, I do have a note here that says this may dominate our conversation. So we haven't even got to that point yet, but we're going to have to kind of rush through this one. The most divisive QB that went this year, obviously, Will Levis, drafted early second. I think it was 33, maybe 34. If you have it off the top of your head.
One of those does seem right.
We have a ton to unpack here. So like, does he start the year? Are we concerned with their lack of weapons? I do want to read a note to you before I get your guys' take here, because I put it off. I pulled it from Twitter. Scott Barrett wrote, pulling it up now. He is ranked QB 26 in Keep Trade Cut. So the dude was picked 30 picks later, dropped 14 spots in Keep Trade Cut. It's crazy to me. All right, so let me read this Scott Barrett message before you guys get going here. The NFL was a lot higher on Will Levis than draft capital implied. Seems just a little bad luck cost him nearly $25 million. So listen to this. Colts Jim Irsay said they would have taken him if Richardson, their 101 Richardson, wasn't there at their pick. They might have still taken him in round 2 if he fell to their pick. Titans. Carthon said they probably would have taken him at 11 if I can't say this guy's name. Skorkowski wasn't there. Ravens. Baltimore probably would have taken him at 22 had they not agreed to a deal with Lamar Jackson earlier in the day. And that was per Jay Fowler, ESPN. And then Panthers. The GM was asked, so you thought highly of all 3 QBs? He went out of his way to correct the reporter. No, we thought highly of all 4 QBs. So a lot of GMs with some love for Will Levis. Oh, Will Levis.
Can I have 20 seconds and I'm good?
Yep.
You're 100% right, and he's actually really undervalued at this moment. He's not going to start this year. The Titans decided they don't like Ryan Tannehill, so they drafted Ryan Tannehill. Done.
Pretty much nailed it. Honestly, like the thing is, like, yeah, you can say that the NFL liked him more than what the draft capital shows, but ultimately, only maybe a couple teams liked him more than what the draft capital shows because the other team still didn't draft him. So it's like maybe a couple, and all it takes is one team to fall in love with a guy ultimately. But the thing is, ultimately, his draft capital still is what it is, and he was divisive. I know, Malik, man. R.I.P.
All right,
There's fantasy
Oh,
value.
we shouldn't say that. Yeah.
Yeah, qualifier.
RIP to the fantasy.
Yeah, put that qualifier in there.
If something happens tonight, they're seriously going to
know.
call us and question us.
Right?
Specifically you.
Yeah,
And if you want to provide your address now for them.
Yeah, I'll put it in the link. But yeah, they I don't know. Like I'm not in on Levis, honestly. I think he does have like sneaky athleticism. Like he's a little bit probably quicker and more athletic than he probably would get credit for, but he's gonna run for like he's like you said, Ryan Tannehill type running. Like I mean, that's the thing, is like he could, but I don't love the situation. I don't love the landing spot. I don't love the draft capital. I think he was more divisive before the draft hit because there was all the reports that he could go this high and this and that. And then once that happened, I think most people are really out on him now, honestly, for fantasy purposes.
I'll take 3 more seconds. The thing I'll say, I mostly agree. I really pretty much agree with you. We were talking 2 weeks ago about drafting this guy at 106 or 107 in dynasty drafts. I don't think him sliding to the second means you shouldn't take him the middle of the second in dynasty drafts. Like I actually think he's good value there now at this point. Despite
middle
the
of
slide
second?
draft. Yeah, middle of second.
I don't think he makes it there.
Even early second. I mean, when you look at 2 weeks ago, you had to draft the guy at 107.
Yeah, 106.
I mean,
107, yeah.
I don't think the world has changed in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I mean, like the Gibbs, it's funny how we saw some of these guys slide different spots. I mean, Rice has slid up, Mingo has slid up.
Yeah, that's
what I was with the draft capital.
Well, that's the thing. I was looking, and I put out my rankings. I had him at the 14th, like in Superflex. So, like you said, that early second.
That feels right.
Yeah, and I kind of moved him down a little bit. Like I guess if you need a QB though, obviously it's kind of dependent there. But like I kind of just like in a vacuum preferred like Mingo, Rice, Reed, Hyatt, like that little group of receivers. All those guys that like kind of went in the second round that we didn't know if they're going to have that draft capital. I feel like I kind of moved all those guys up. So I think I'm settling with him at like 18 or 19 in Superflex, which feels a little bit low, but I would have no problem moving him up all the way up to, I think it's just a huge tier, to be honest. I have like 15 guys in that tier. So like I would have no problem taking him as high as like the 12th overall pick.
Let me ask you boys a quick question here that will kind of put it in a little bit of a perspective. If you were guaranteed that Will Levis would start this season, not that whether you believe that's a good thing or a bad thing, put that aside. If you were guaranteed that he would be starting and you needed a QB in your dynasty, rank these QBs in order: Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, Will Levis. Is that the order? Did I just say the order?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is. Probably. That's what I was debating.
Is that right around where it is too? Or is that like, did I just pull a portion of the draft? The only reason I brought those guys' name up is because of 2022.
That is 23 to 26.
That would be it.
21 to 24, maybe. I mean, it's right there. It's your, yeah. So,
I think so too.
I think those guys are, to me, almost right outside of. I mean, I think even in a super flex, you are talking the guys you're debating them or receiver in your super flex spot. You know what I mean by that? Like,
yeah, you're probably going. I mean, Kenny Pickett probably has upside because that offense might be really good this year. All depending on him.
Maybe.
Another thing I wanted to make note: think about the guys that drafted QBs this year. So we had the Texans, the Panthers, the Titans, and the Colts, right?
And Lions. Well, yeah.
I guess I mean these like guys that
yeah, I'm with you.
Probably starting soon. The Colts are the only ones with an established good receiving room. Like you have the Texans, it's messy. Carolina
I'm even gonna say they're the only ones with an average receiving room. I'm not willing to say the Colts have a good receiving room, really.
It's at least a more put together by a landslide than all three of those other teams.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And like the fact that the Titans, like I obviously have Treylon Burks love, and I do. But the fact that you're gonna run him out there with Akeem Westbrook, like who
Don't forget
what
Kyle
are we
Phillips.
doing? Kyle Phillips, they must have huge faith in Kyle Phillips.
I actually wonder if they
believe
do.
that.
Honestly, I do too. It hurt me to drop him. We talked about this. I dropped and it
Should go
hurt me.
snag him, huh? I
It's
mean,
a
he
good
was
grab, I
used
think.
early often. I don't
He had
know
a
what
he had a
their
Kadarius
thought
Toney
is here.
problem.
It's just interesting that the three of the four teams that drafted QBs don't have the rest of their offense put together at all. Carolina's trying to glue freaking stars onto circles. Texans are I guess attempting to do what they're really just coloring outside of the lines anyways.
Pretty
The only hope is like Michael Pittman is more than average to me. He is.
I don't think
you're
not excited for him as a wide receiver. Like if you're a team and you say Michael Pittman's my wide receiver 1, you're not giddy about that.
That's probably because he's like wide receiver 20, right? Like in ranks wise.
Right.
So
yeah.
But it's fine. It's fine. I agree with your like it's the best.
And downs,
for sure.
Downs. Let's talk down. No, I'm kidding. We'll do the downs talk for another day. Did you guys have any? We have a rookie sleeper show planned, so maybe the rest of these QBs. Obviously, it's going to be dominated by Hendon Hooker, and honestly, I don't know who else would get talked about. We can kind of save those for the rookie sleeper show, which is all positions. Did you guys have anybody you wanted a quick mention here?
Go ahead, Norton, because I think we're both probably just going to quickly mention Hooker. So
I was going to say, really, it was the only other one is Hooker and Hooker. Basically, I was going to ask do you guys prefer him long term to Levis? And like I think because I think Levis has definitely a lot more probability of playing this year than Hooker, considering who they're sitting behind, but in draft capital. But like, I don't really love Levis at all, and like, I don't know if I maybe would just prefer Hooker's long-term outlook more. I don't know though, because he's old too. So like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me, Hooker is going to be in the NFL for a long time, but I think he's probably a long-term backup for me.
That's kind of how it feels for me.
Yeah. That being said, I think he landed in a great spot. Spot. You know, Jared Goff's going to be an expiring contract, great weapons. Obviously, the team took him in the third, which is a little bit of an investment. I think there's an opportunity. Yeah, I think there's an opportunity there, but he looks like a career backup to me. A good one at that, but a career backup.
Yeah, I think we had this discussion about him potentially being that career backup, but like you're absolutely right. Like Campbell is 100% the coach to be under. If he's like, if he sees a spark in you, if he sees you're just dominating in practice daily, and he sees that throughout the year, he might not start you that year, but he might go to that owner who's weirdly actively involved. There's a couple owners like this, obviously, Jerry Jones and said, but I never really knew she was until kind of seeing Hard Knocks last year and kind of seeing the draft. Anyways, he's going to go to her and say, we got our guy. He would absolutely do that if Hendon Hooker shows that.
Shows him anything, anything. Yep.
Strong.
So he could get strong. So I actually think he has
heart.
Yeah, he has actually probably like he has a high upside, I guess I'd say. I just think it's a long shot.
Yeah.
It's a long shot to see if we ever see him, but he does seem like he's one of the more talented guys coming out of here. But we have to kind of keep in mind Hyatt and what's the other receiver from Tennessee? Cedric Tillman. Rounds one. They both got drafted within 3 rounds too, and those were his guys. So but we don't knock Stroud for that. So, or at least I didn't. All right, boys. Fun episode. Ready to kick off the year for you guys. We'll be back on Wednesday. Cody won't be here. I'm assuming you and Robbie switched.
I think I'm still doing Wednesday, actually.
Oh, double. Yeah.
I want to talk some RBs.
I think it is RBs. Yeah,
it is.
Oh, man. I'm going to have to get my notes ready for Kendre Miller.
Here we go.
Where's the South Park meme? Norton, thanks for joining us today. If you guys aren't already following Norton, go check him out at Norton0723. You know what? I almost had that memorized, but I had to check for the numbers. So I had the Norton part memorized in case you guys were wondering. I still don't have this outro music handy, but I have it ready now. If you're not following us on Twitter, check us out at DadBodFS, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram. It's under DadBod Fantasy Squad. We're finally getting TikTok videos rolling. So check us out there. We're recording a episode onto Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. I don't know if you can hear me. Check it. Go anywhere where we're posting our podcast. You can hear us. We'll have that.
I'm trying to get us in the phone book.
We're working on getting into the phone book and a Panera endorsement for myself, for Mudcat Cody, for Norton. Peace.